Advocates for family court reform say that family court is arguably the least protected court for those who go into it. I've met parents from across the board who complain about the results that they got when they try to either get custody to protect their children or be a part of their children's lives. One thing that they all agree on is that there's very little accountability and very little transparency. In family court, unlike other courts, you don't have a jury, you are not guaranteed an attorney, you're not guaranteed court transcripts, and without transcripts, it's very hard to appeal. Recently, groups of parents across the country and internationally commemorated Parental Alienation Awareness Day. The term refers to the unjustified and intentional alienation of a parent from a child's life, likely by the other parent. We held a Facebook Live to discuss the issue. Since then, we've received hundreds of comments, messages, and documents from people around the country who say that they've either been victims or accused of parental alienation and ended up losing custody of their children. I've never covered an issue that incensed people so much, but then again, almost every parent will say there's nothing worse than losing a child. As we discussed in a previous story, there are primarily two groups who agree that family court is messed up, but disagree on the basis and relevance of parental alienation and how it leads to loss of custody. At one end of the spectrum, you have a protective parent, or a parent who alleges their child was sexually, physically, or emotionally abused by the other parent. This parent lost custody when the other side successfully accused them of lying about abuse or coaching their children to do so. They were accused of parental alienation. This woman, who we'll call Pam, says her daughter was sexually abused by the child's father. Documents show Pam's daughter told a pediatrician and a therapist that her father had penetrated her vagina with his fingers. She complained of burning, and a doctor documented irritation and a tear. According to medical documents, she told a medical examiner about the father's penis and other objects inserted into her genital area.
Doctor's reports, which corroborated this abuse. Part of that was a tear in my daughter's vagina at 4 years old. And Judge said that could have happened many ways. She could have scratched herself. She could have fell or something along those lines.
The judge said I lied, coached my daughter, and switched custody.
Groups raising awareness on this phenomenon say the courts overwhelmingly grant custody to abusers, and that parental alienation is not a diagnosis founded on science, but rather a tactic to defend abusers.
If you are going to claim the other parent is abusing your child, there's a chance that it will boomerang against you and you will lose custody. Because what I tell my clients is there's things we know and there's things we can prove. There's a risk anytime you're bringing a protective parent case before the court that you're going to end up losing custody. If not on the first hearing, eventually.
If you make the allegation, and this is such a serious thing to allege, I mean, others and I have called it, like the nuclear weapon of family court. So if you drop that bomb and you can't prove it, it's not like you go back to zero.
Robin Yeamans has represented victims of domestic violence in court for decades and says judges systematically disbelieve victims and protective parents, especially when sexual abuse is alleged.
The judges, when it comes to sexual abuse, tend to go into denial. And then the question is, if it wasn't sexual abuse that led to this allegation, what did? And then people say, lawyers say, the mother is an alienator.
At the other end, you have parents who say they've been alienated or erased from their children's lives just out of spite, revenge, or anger by an alienator.
She wouldn't look or talk to me.
What do you think? Why do you think that was?
Oh, she was coached. She was definitely coached. Because my daughter was never like that.
But we'll begin this journey at the one place where both sides come together, the need for reform. If you suspect your judge was biased or corrupt, you can issue a complaint at the CJP. The Commission on Judicial Performance is the independent watchdog group charged with investigating judicial complaints and disciplining judges. But 5 of their 11 members are judges, and almost all of their investigations are confidential.
At first, I was told by attorney not to file a complaint with the Commission on Judicial Performance. He said that it's a good old boys club. The judge would get a slap on the wrist at best and then be back on the bench the next day, and that there would be clear retaliation against me.
Since 1995, the CJP has only removed 11 judges from the bench and publicly admonished 92. Of the more than 1,200 complaints they concluded on, just 5 judges were publicly disciplined. 3 were publicly admonished, 2 were censored, and no judge was removed from the bench. All other investigations are confidential. Parents and advocates for court reform have taken this fight to the legislature, and in 2016 they got the state to audit the CJP for the first time in its 58-year history. The CJP sued the state auditor, Elaine Howe. Their attorney explained to me over the phone that the Constitution provides that some of the CJP's records are confidential.
The Commission says, no, you can't look at it. We're special. And we're claiming, no, we have to look at it. And we'll keep them confidential. State law says the state auditor has to keep them confidential or it's a crime. So there's really no issue here. We're not going to violate their confidential files, but see, they're afraid.
The CJP won the lawsuit, but the auditor appealed. Now that process could take a few years. In the meantime, lawmakers are trying to get them to settle, to come to some kind of agreement, at the risk of the CJP losing its budget. Now that's a catch-22 because without a budget, without being able to operate, then there would be zero oversight on judges. For more stories like this one, remember to subscribe to our channel. And if you have comments, stories you'd like to share, or ideas for what I should be covering next, please do so in the comments section below.